Morning, folks. I just recently bought an addition to add to my Harley Davidson 2007 RoadKing police bike, and it's the type of modification that would help people, you know, as far as holding up the bike when you get to like a stop sign or when you're traveling through a parking lot. You know, especially people that are not interested in actually buying a trike, that still like the ride and the feel of you know, riding a motorcycle and then leaning into the corners and, you know, having all the fun that comes along with riding a motorcycle. So what I ended up purchasing is what's called the Leg Up system from Pete G down in Florida. Let me grab the brochure here. And yeah, down in Florida, it's called the LandinGear or Leg Up system. And that I'm gonna actually post this, or I would just say show this on the screen here. Hopefully it's you know, what do you call it, focusing. Hopefully it's focusing real good there, so you can see you know, the phone number, and you can pause it to actually get some details right there. So anyways, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to do a comprehensive installation video on the motorcycle. He does actually have an install video, but I'm going to do it a little differently in terms of running the wiring from the control on the handlebar. In his video, he actually has his mechanic running the control wire under the tank. I'm going to run it actually through the console, so I don't have to undo the plug, but then hopefully be able to cover everything else so you can really get a good idea on how to install this on your motorcycle. What it amounts to is on the rear passenger footboards, you actually remove those and add this to those mounts. But I'm going to pause it right here so I can actually lay out all the equipment or all the parts and then go through each of the parts with you. So stand by and I'll be back in a bit. Okay. I didn't do a whole unboxing thing and all that. I'm sure that people have seen plenty of unboxing videos out there. So this is what you get in the kit, and you get the user's guide, their user's manual, and a installation manual. This is the Generation 2 for Harley touring models, and then of course to the right of the manual you'll see the two mounts. These are everything's all wrapped up. It was really nicely packed, bubble wrapped, as well as what do you call those packing, big bubble packs there and all that kind of stuff, in two boxes. And the whole kit weighs about 43 pounds roughly. To the right of those mounts you can see actually the compressor. I'm going to unwrap all these things and I'll also show you all unwrapped. This is the controller, Leg Up controller, hardware kit, wiring harness here, and then of course your two actual Leg Up mounts. And then of course your air hoses, and also some extra hose here. What is it called? Yeah, extra air line right here, as well as looks like some type of rubber strap, a couple rubber straps of some sort, but I'll be going through all that as I do the installation. So be back with you in a bit after I unwrap everything so you can get a view of that before I get started. Okay, I got everything unwrapped, and very nicely made. everything powder coated. I'm gonna give you a close-up view of everything, or at least try to, anyways. And again, this is a fellow by the name of Pete G. And I'm gonna get right down there so you can actually see his company there, doing business as Chopper Design Services down in Florida. And of course there's the installation guide. Here are the mounts. Heavy duty, boy, I'm telling you, they have some heavy duty steel mounts, nicely powder coated. And there's the controller, and of course the user's manual, as well as the installation guide. I believe that most anybody that's mechanical can actually do this themselves, which I'm planning on doing. So there's the speed sensor right there. That actually is the speed sensor that goes on the rear tire, or on the rear wheel. And I'm pretty much assuming by the video that I watched, that's what actually, when you have it in automatic mode, it'll drop it when you get below, I think it's 9 miles an hour. There's the controller that goes on the handlebars, and again, the hose and the extra hose there, and then of course over here you've got the wire and harness, and also to the actual leg up units. Very nicely made. Got some really nice roller wheels on it. Stainless steel parts, all heavy duty. You can see the pistons. See those pistons right in there. And of course, left and right side. And let me also too. I'm going to take the cover off from the compressor unit. It's got these little captive nuts on the top here. This is what's going to go in the left-hand side saddlebag. Takes up about 1/3 of the saddlebag, and this cover comes right off. Very nicely made little compressor unit. Looks like it's, I hope to be real good quality. It all looks like really nice quality. It's already got a couple hoses hooked on, because there's also a couple of fittings that have to be mounted to the saddlebag, which are right in this bag here. You can see the bulkhead fittings right there for the air hoses. So that way you can still detach your saddlebag, remove your saddlebag when you have to do any maintenance, that kind of thing. And then on the other side of this here, you can see a little tank, little compressor tank, and pretty much what it is, a little air tank, compressor and air tank. Looks like here's the control valve that operates the leg up units, and it looks like some type of switch right there. So very nice, very nicely made. So I'm looking forward to getting this all set up on the bike and see how it works. Because I'm not getting any younger. I really don't want to buy a trike. I really like my RoadKing. My wife loves it. She loves riding on it. It was a used Vermont State Police bike that we found at our local Harley shop. So very beautiful bike. So and I've ridden a trike before, and I really didn't like the feel of it. Nothing like riding just a two-wheel motorcycle. So at this point, what I've got to do is I've got to get the backrest off it, get my homebrew Pirate's Chest trunk off the back of it there. And I got to get the seat off. I got to take off the mounts, or I should say the footboards that I had put on the bike when I purchased it for my wife. Take those off, because those won't be needed anymore. Oh yeah, and actually too, the stock footboards that come on a touring bike, you can actually take those footboards off to put on the Leg Up system, where I don't have the standard footboards, standard passenger footboards. I had to buy the footboard kit, and they actually mount right on this portion of it right here, right on this portion, and you can see the holes right here that they mount to. There's pins that go through, and then you've got your footboards that go right on the top there. So I had to buy the footboard kit, which is, you know, not that much extra. Also too, I'm gonna take the windshield off. Take the windshield off and make it a little bit easier to run the wiring. And I'll have to take off the console so that way I can run the wiring and get all the wiring harness in place. But I'll like I say, I'll try to do a detailed video on the step-by-step process. So, anyways, I will be back in a bit, and I get everything else all set. Okay, the very first thing I'm going to work on mounting, because I've got the seat off, and I've got the windshield off, and the saddlebags off. I think the very first thing I'm going to work on is I'm going to work on mounting the controller. And it looks like to me where the controller is going to be mounted, it looks like to me it mounts right on the handlebar, of course, and right on this part of the handlebar, right here. Let's see if I can get actually a better view of it here. Mounts right on this screw right here on the handlebar. So I'm going to have to move my clock. I'll move it to the other side so I can get this controller mounted, and then run the wiring down through the console. I've already taken the console off. I've got another wire that goes through there too. A couple wires actually. One of them, this one here, runs my stereo system. I'm going to tie it right along with that. And I did realize after unpacking this, that the cord, or the plug, actually does come dismantled. So I'll look through the instructions, of course, to know what wire goes where into the plug. Put it in the proper spot where it all, you know, plugs together. I saw that in the video as well. So I'm going to move the clock and then get the controller mounted. Very nicely made. I mean, this is all stainless steel, aluminum. Looks like aluminum there, yeah, and all machined aluminum case. Very, very nicely, nice feel to the switches. Very, very positive, rugged, robust switches there. So, very pleased so far. Okay, so, anyways, I'll be back with you in a little bit here, and get that part of it done. Okay, took a little preparation. What I ended up doing is I ended up moving my clock over where the thermometer is. Apparently that's something that they put on some of the police bikes, a clock and a thermometer. That way they don't have to actually have the engine on to see the clock out of the display. But anyway, so I got this mounted over here, right on the left-hand side of the bike, of course. And this switch here will be what activates, or what turns on the bike, the leg up system. And then, of course, this is the one that activates it up and down. So what I've got to do now is I've got to route the wiring. I'm also going to do the same thing with routing my speaker wiring at the same time, right down. I'm just going to tie wrap it. What they recommend, just tie wrap it right to the cabling here, and then I'm going to route it, of course, right around, and then right under the console, right in this location right here, and right under the console, right down to this section right down in here where the battery is. So I'm going to do that next, get that set, and then we'll go to the next phase. Okay, so now that I've got the hand controller mounted, what I ended up doing is, I don't know if you can see it here, but I ended up just running the wire right down with this set of cables right over to this corner of the forks, or the handlebars I should say. This is actually my phone mount right here, and went right down kind of below it. This set of cables right here is actually the cables that go to my stereo. The amplifier is actually mounted in the windshield bag, so just bear in mind that's what those are. And then over here I ran right along there, and then I hooked right to the vent tube right here. It's going to go right under the console, right down to this point right here. Okay, so once the console is back in place, because that wiring's all hidden, and then because I'll put the plug on, I got to look through the manual, make sure I put it on correctly. I'll try to video that too, or definitely will try to video it. Okay, so there's that part of it there, and on to the next part. Okay, as far as the pin goes, very good instructions. I mean, there's nothing to it. I've got the 6-pin connector, so it's a matter of matching it up, putting it in the right, I don't know if you can see that. I don't know if that's actually focusing, but they're clearly marked right on the plug there, so it's pretty hard to screw up. So that's the next step. I'm going to put that plug on. There. Okay. So, according to instructions, you see, pretty self-explanatory, because if you have the 8-pin, that's the instructions for the 8-pin. Why is it, very clearly color-coded. So, like I say, pretty difficult to screw up on it. And then once you're done, you can see the little pins. See the little pins right through there. Oh, I gotta set the camera down here so you can. And then you've got this little cap. That just plugs right on the top of it there and snaps right into place. And I'm guessing that it goes. I guess it really doesn't matter which way it goes. And that it closes up the end of it right there. Let's see. No, I guess it does go one way. At least that's what it felt like. Felt like it only went in one direction. Yeah, just whichever way actually fits the easiest is what I'd do. Yeah, because that way it just seemed to snap right in there. So, yeah, that's it, right there. Pretty slick. Okay, so now what I've got to do is, I think the next step is going to be mounting the bulkhead connections on the saddlebag,
which is, let's see here, mounting the bulkhead connectors on the saddlebag, which means I got to drill a couple holes in the saddlebag. And there's also a notch that I have to make in the top of the saddlebag for the cable to go through, for the big control cable to go through. So that'll be the next step. So I'll be back in a bit. Oop, I jumped the gun a little bit. I said I was going to do the whole bulkhead fittings for the air through the saddlebag next, but my next step actually was to get the wiring harness through a section of the bike so it would be available for the actual saddlebag. So what I got to do is I got to get that in place, get it tie wrapped, and what I ended up doing is I ended up going right beside the battery. Right beside the battery, you can get down through to this section of the bike right here. Right in this section of the bike, right where where all the fuse stuff is, and you can see my bike is pretty damn dirty. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie wrap it right to this heavy cable right here, make sure it doesn't rub on anything, and then that'll be in place. And this end of the cable, or the wiring harness, is actually where the sensor hooks on, which is going to be mounted down on the wheel, and as well as the control cable that goes up to the handlebars there, plus your power leads. But I'll get all that in place, and at least the power cable hooked up, and everything kind of put in place. Plus I got to also find out what these white plugs are for. I'll have to look through the manual some more, and the installation manual, see what those are for. So I'll be back in a little bit. Okay, the next step I had to do was where I've got an 07. It says to run the speed sensor onto the left side, because I've got what it says in the instruction is the pulley bolt. Okay, so it said to just run this onto the left side along with the big cable here. Then the next step was to take the white plugs. You see those two white plugs there. Unplug the fender cable, what goes onto the fender, which goes to the back tail light. Unplug that and plug these white wires in between. You could probably, I hope you could see that, what I'm doing. Yeah, there's the black plug that went together right there. Okay, right under this bracket, right under the seat bracket, or I should say my backrest bracket. And then I'm going to put this white set right in between, just like that. So there's that next step there. But of course, you're going to want to be reading your instructions as well, just like what I'm doing, just to make sure that I'm following every step the way I'm supposed to. So, okay, so I'll be back with you in a bit. Okay, my next step was to hook up the power leads. Pretty self-explanatory. You get the fuse with a red wire, your positive, black wire negative, and it looks like a 20 amp fuse, and then the cable that comes from the handlebars, your controller. You can see here I've got that routed right up through underneath the console, and here's the other end of it here. Just plug that together. What I'm going to do for now is I'm just going to stuff it down into this cavity, and I'll probably end up with some more wire once I'm done from the main cable. But this is the next part of the instructions there. So now at this point, you go back to your instructions, and it will actually, this is where you do a test, I believe, but I'll read through it and then I'll explain it once I'm done. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually drill the saddlebag and mount the bulkhead connectors for the air hoses. That'll be the next step. And I'm sure that watching the video that Pete has is sufficient. You don't really need to watch me drilling the holes. So I'll see you in the next clip here. Okay, pretty straightforward. I just used a small, looks like about a 1/4 inch bit to make the pilot, because you saw the little template that I put on there that comes with the instructions. And then 1/2 inch bit. Take your time drilling through, and ends up making some perfectly fine holes, as you can see there. And then I'll show you the next step in mounting the putting on the bulkhead fittings. Okay, as far as the instructions go, I kind of jumped ahead a little bit, but it really doesn't make much difference. Like I say, I'm just going to show you the instructions pretty much say not to over tighten the bulkhead fittings, and that way they can actually move around a little bit. To be able to actually attach the hoses makes it a little bit easier. Yeah, that just fits right on there like that. It says to start with the bottom one. Pretty much, all you're doing is putting I don't know if you probably can't even see in there actually. As far as the let me get a flashlight here. Put a little bit of light on the subject. You can see the inside of it there. Pretty basic stuff. Mount both of those. I'll see you in the next clip. Now also too, in the instructions of making the accommodations for the pump and the hoses and the cable for the hard bags, it also recommends, or it also says to make a notch right about in this location right here, just ahead of the rear mount hole. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use a drill bit, and I'm going to drill right close to the edge there, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut the top part of that hole with a hacksaw. Pretty simple, easy peasy stuff. And now, as you can see, all I did was drill the hole right on the edge and just use a hacksaw just to make a notch right there for the cable to go through. Now it's time to put the saddlebag on and set the pump inside of it. I'll show you that next step there. Okay, I kind of jumped the gun a little bit here in terms of I didn't follow exactly the steps of the instructions, but that's okay. The sensor on this bike goes on the right hand side. Of course, it's mounted right here to the shock bolt, right between the swing arm and the shock bolt, or the shock mount, and you can see the sensor right here. So what I ended up doing is I ended up just running, had plenty of wire on it, so I ran it up through. I've got a tie wrap it along here. I'm going to tie wrap it right along with the hydraulic brake line, and then what I did is I come right up behind one of the controllers right here, right up by the fender, and by this particular cable right here, this cable case right up in the corner here. And then I'm going to just run it right along with this, right under the backrest mount, just like that. And then what I'll do is I'll put it right along with the other cables here, and I'll end up hiding all the excess cable right in here. That should work just fine. And then at that point, I'll be ready to put the hook up the compressor, set the saddlebag, put the compressor in the saddlebag, plug it in, and then do a test on it to make sure that I'm getting power when I turn it on, and then I adjust the sensor location, the speed sensor, because of proximity sensor there. I'm assuming the way the instructions read may need a little adjusting before I tighten down the shock bolt. So I'm going to go through that, and then I'll get back to you once I have everything in place and plugged in. Okay, now at this point, you can see what I did over here. If you can see it, yeah, it's pretty dark, but here's the line right here, or the cable that comes from the sensor, the speed sensor. So I just left a little bit of slack there for movement up and down. Comes up through, right in between the frame here, ran it across, and then I just connected it right along with the other cables, and here it is all plugged in from the up on the handlebar. The switch is up on the handlebar, so I'm just going to actually compact them all right into here. There's plenty of extra wire there, so I'm just going to twist them right in this little compartment right here, tuck them right in, be right out of the way, and then the seat can go right back on, no problem. So I'd probably put one more tie wrap on that right there too. Then the other thing I did too is I got the saddlebag on. I've got the unit all plugged in, the controller all plugged in. So now at this point, from what I remember reading, if I'm correct, I can actually just test the unit, turn it on, make sure the compressor starts and runs and fills up the tank. And I've already hooked the hoses on right down in there, the pump hoses. You can see how much room the unit takes up. It takes up about a third of the saddlebag, because there's a cover that goes on that too. But I'm not going to put the cover on just yet. And of course the controller here mounts right on top of the cover. It's got a piece of Velcro, sticky back Velcro, that mounts it right on top of the cover. And the cover is right over here. And it goes right on over the unit down inside the box there. But I want to test it out first, and then it'll be the next step. The next step will be mounting these, or I should say, mounting the brackets in place of where the pegs, or the rider's pegs go, and then mounting, of course, the actual leg up units. So that'll be the next step. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the testing process to make sure, and then I can also make sure that the sensor is adjusted correctly and in the correct place, and then I can tighten my shock back up. So I'll let you know how the testing goes next. Okay, the testing went just fine. Turn the bike on, and of course you want to hear, the first time you actually turn it on, you'll hear the compressor run really quickly. It'll pump up that little tank, and then it will shut right off. And then from that point on, from what I can gather, when you turn the unit off, or when you turn your bike off, and you go to turn it on, what you'll hear is you'll hear a click. I'm sure you probably heard that, but you're hearing also the other clicking that's got to do with the bike being hot, because I ran it for a little bit. Pretty much, you hear the click, green light will come on, it does it, the green and red light will come on, goes through a diagnostic, and then you turn it on by holding this right hand button. Green light will come on, yellow light will come on, you hear the click, and then what you're looking for back here is you're looking for that little red light on the sensor to turn as you, whoop, I got it in gear, hang on just a second. Let's take it out of gear. What you've got to do is, once you mount this sensor where it's supposed to go, I had to do a little bit of adjusting. See how the light went out? And then light goes back on, and what it's doing is when it goes off, it's in that hollow spot of the rotor, and then it turns back on when it's sensing the metal, the magnet, whatever it is inside of it, some type of magnet senses the metal, and then it gets into the hollow spot again, metal again. So that's what you want to see. And then what I ended up doing is I ended up actually putting it in gear and actually let the clutch out, because I've got it up on a stand, of course. Got the wheel off the ground. I let the wheel actually spin above that 9-mile-an-hour speed that ended up actually turning off the yellow light. So what that's telling me is that's when the leg up will go up. But of course I haven't got the leg ups on yet. So once I do that, once I get the leg ups on, I'll have everything all plugged in. I'll have the cover on. I'll have my controller mounted on top. I'll have everything all in place. And then I'm going to try to do a demonstration. I believe I should be able to do a demonstration with it up on its stand, or up on this jack. So I can actually let the clutch out, get the wheel spinning, the units will go up. You know, I'll have it activated, so it'll be simulating like I'm out on the road kind of deal. So anyways, now it's time to mount the leg up units. So I'll see you in a bit. Okay, in this section I've already taken, as you can see, I've already taken off the this bike actually was a police bike, so it had pegs on the back, so it had the peg mounts. I put little mini footboards on for my wife, but anyways, I've got that all taken off, and it looks to me like they used of course they're using a two bolt mounting system, and these pieces they are beautifully made, powder coated. Also too, just bear in mind, I'm not getting anything for doing this, so you know, I'm not being paid by this company. It just happened to be something that I saw online, searching around, wanting to avoid the whole having to someday invest in a trike kind of deal, you know, or convert this to a trike. So, so anyways, so next I'm going to be mounting this right onto that mount there. What you have to do is you have to take this plastic plug out. Right, ooh boy, coming out of there awful hard. Well, I'll get that plastic plug out of there, then I'll mount this on. Use your Loctite, of course, on these particular bolts. Make sure you line them up good and tight. This is going to be holding the weight, you know, kind of in a sense holding the weight of the bike, but not really. Well, yes and no. I mean, It's really just to stand the bike up, give you a helping hand coming to stop signs, parking lots, that kind of thing. So anyways, I'll see you in the next clip there when I get this mounted. You know, one of the things that I found once I took the peg mount off is, yeah, let's do a little close up here. Hopefully it'll work. You know, I don't know if that's, well, it kind of gives you an idea. The bolt holes and the threads are a bit rusty. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to end up running a die through it, through the threads, just to clean them out. And they look pretty nasty, so I don't want these bolts to bind up and not be able to tighten everything. So that's what I'll do next, and I'll be back after I'm done. Yeah, you can see here, it's taking a little bit of doing. Let's see if I can get a good shot of it. Where is it? Right there. Let me get a better angle here. Hang on a second. See if I can get an angle that you can see. There we go. A little bit of doing with a die. Just got to be patient. A little bit of oil. Run that die through each of the holes. Clean them out real good. Oop, you're not getting a good shot of that. Hang on a second. There we go. Clean those holes out real good. And then run a paper towel through them, clean out the oil as much as possible, and then those should take those bolts just fine at that point. So, I'll see you in the next clip. Okay, there we go. I think you can see it all right. It helps to have, get some lighting on here. It helps to have actually one of the type of Allens, like they show in their video, that hooks to a ratchet, but I don't have those, so I've just got the standard Allen wrenches. And it's a number 8 metric. Yeah, number 8 metric. I mean, I do have the type that, you know, go on a ratchet, but of course you can't get this through it, so which is, you know, perfectly fine. And there's an L marked on the bracket that has to be upright, and it doesn't stand for a left. But all this stuff is explained in the manual, the installation manual. So definitely follow the installation manual. I kind of jumped around in a couple spots with the way that I did things, you know, because it's just the way that it worked out for me. So, but definitely read the manual. Really can't. I mean, it's really a very, very nicely set up instruction manual, installation manual, as well as it's really pretty much plug and play, which is awesome. An awesome setup. So, okay, I'm going to tighten this up. Pretty much, like I say, use the Loctite, tighten it up real good. And I'll get to the other side. Actually, before I get to the other side, I got to show you this, mounting this part of it, the actual leg. What you're going to want to use on the top set of bolts, right there, on the top, you've got 2 holes that mounts to the bracket. Pretty self-explanatory. And then, of course, you've got 2 on the bottom. Now, the 2 on the top, you're going to want to use these. And what they have is, you know, the nylon lock nuts. So you're going to use these on the top. You're going to use these on the bottom. X that on the bottom. Pretty simple. I'll mount that up and I'll be right back. And what I'm doing is just snugging them up, but not tightening them completely, until I get all of them, all 4 of them, snugged up pretty decent. So once I'm all done, I'll see you in the next clip, because we'll be switching to the other side. And before we go to the other side, I actually wanted to just show you something. Kind of give you an idea of how it works before I actually even activate it. When it's activated, the air compressor shoots air into this piston, and the thing just goes like that, right down. And then when it's deactivated, it goes back up. Spring loaded. So from what I saw in the video, it kind of like comes up like that. But when you come into a stop and you've got it activated at under 9 miles an hour, just go just like that. So pretty slick. Okay, it looks like the same thing on this side here. You can see the, well, kind of, I guess you can see the insides of the bowl holes are pretty rusty. Pretty rusty. So I'm going to clean them right out good with oil and the dye kit, or dye, I mean. Clean them out real good. It's the lower and upper. You can see how rusty they are. Make sure you do that, so that way your bolts will run right in there real easy. Oil, dye, and then wipe them out with a paper towel, and then blow them out with some compressed air, and you'll be all set. And then what I did on the other side, what I ended up doing, let me see if I can get this, hold this camera steady here, is the little plastic cover, little cap that was on the top of the top hole. I ended up actually putting it in the middle. I put it in the middle, and then the mount covers that right up. So I'm just going to do all that. I'm not going to bore you with all the showing you how to do it. So, and then once I get it all mounted, then it will be working on running the hoses to each of the leg ups. So I'll see you in the next video clip. Okay, got the right side done. Now I'm running the hoses, and there is a left and a right, and that's marked on the compressor unit. So, like I said, following the instructions is your best bet. They've got some really good instructions, so really hard to make a mistake on this. But what I ended up doing, of course, per the instructions, if you look right here on the bottom of the mount, there's a hole. That's what you run the air hose through, and you leave enough slack so when you bring it down like this, I noticed that it has a tendency to want to fold right up under, and you've got to make sure that you leave enough hose through here. And then what I did was I mounted it right to the bottom of the bracket. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, you probably can right there. I put a tie wrap right there. I'm going to probably put a couple more, or put at least another one on. Hold it nice and tight. And then you just want to make sure, do that a few times. Make sure that hose moves up and down without scuffing on anything, without hitting anything. It has a tendency to fold right up under the footboard, or where the footboard's going to go, this bracket here. And then what I did was I ran it right up in behind this wiring, and I don't know if you can see it there or not. Let me see, get my light on it. There it is right there. You can see it right there. Run it right up through, and kind of right beside the battery. Right beside the battery here, and then right around. I tied it right along with these cables right here. It goes underneath my backrest bracket, and then right over to the saddlebag. So the left-hand side, pretty much the same thing, or exactly the same thing. Just that you got to route it in an area where it's not going to, get hot, kink, or scuff on anything. So
Like I say, there's a hole in the bottom of the bracket, and I'll get that in place, and then it will be a matter of giving it a test. Test it right here in the garage while it's right up on the jack stand, and see how it's all going to work. So, be back with you in a bit. Okay, so all completed. I just did a test run on the stand to make sure it deployed like it's supposed to. Everything's working great. Now it's going to be a learning curve. On how to use it, all that kind of thing. I'm going to set this right down right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make it go up and down a couple times. I'm not going to start the bike because I also want you to hear, because you don't hear the compressor when the bike's running, but you do when the bike's off, of course. I mean, that makes sense. So really pretty much disregard the sound of the compressor, because you're not going to hear it when you're running the bike, and when you're on the road, or you barely probably will hear it, but you definitely will hear it without the bike running. So I'll give you a demonstration. Okay, I'm going to turn the system on. And then all I'm going to do is just be pushing the left-hand button to deploy the system. What that did, the compressor ran long enough to charge up that little tank that's in there. Excuse me. Now I'll turn the bike on anyways, just so you can see that you don't even hear the compressor when the bike's running. There you go. Yeah, that nasty squeaking you'll hear in there is the rubber muffler mount. Mounts up underneath the saddlebag there. It gets dried out, it starts squeaking, so I gotta
squirt it with a little simple green to quiet it down. So hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you learned a bit. Great system. It really pretty easy to do. It's just time consuming, that's all. You're doing it for the first time. Pretty much plan a day for it. Because more than likely there's going to be little things here and there that you're going to want to do along the way to to really get it set up right. But it's all plug and play stuff, so it's just awesome setup. So I want to thank Pete G at the place in Florida at what is it called again? LandinGear Leg Up, LandinGear.com. And where is it here? What's the company again? Oh, yeah. Doing business as Chopper Design Services. Really slick setup there, Pete. Hope you can use this video. And it's just a matter of testing it out. Because anybody that's watching this, if they just watch the videos that Pete has, you'll see, them actually, riding the bike and deploying them and all that kind of thing. I don't need to do that for you. You can see that on those other videos. I just figured I'd do an installation video. So again, here's his little brochure that he has with it. There's his phone number right there. Give him a call if you're interested in setting up a motorcycle to give you a helping hand, so you don't have to buy a trike. It'll be real interesting to see how this all works out. Anyways, take care, everybody. God bless. Have a great 2018. Safe riding.